As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the golden sands of ancient Mali, I found myself lost in thought. The weight of history pressed upon my shoulders, for here in these ancient vast lands of rolling sand dunes, where the scorching sun hugged the dunes in a fiery embrace, began a journey that would forever change the course of an empire and the world beyond. I am Umar, lifelong keeper of the ancient knowledge, a historian, and I bear a tale of unimaginable wealth, bold ambition, and a legacy that would outlive us all. As I stand here in the heart of Timbuktu, the air thick with the scent of ancient manuscripts and the whispers of centuries past, I can't help but feel the weight of history pressing down upon me. For I, dear viewer, am about to take you on a journey through time, to an era when gold flowed like water and knowledge was the most precious currency of all. This is the tale of Mansa Musa, the man who turned a city into a beacon of learning, and how his pilgrimage to Mecca birthed one of the greatest libraries the world has ever known. Picture, if you will, a caravan stretching as far as the eye can see, glittering with gold and vibrant silks. At its head rides a man whose very presence commands respect and awe. This is Mansa Musa, ruler of the Mali Empire, and he's about to embark on a journey that will change the course of history. But before we follow Mansa Musa on his epic pilgrimage, let me paint you a picture of the man himself. Imagine a ruler so wealthy that his generosity could crash economies, a leader so powerful that his name was whispered in reverent tones from the shores of West Africa to the courts of Europe. Mansa Musa was no ordinary king. He was a force of nature, a man whose ambition and vision knew no bounds. Under Mansa Musa's reign, the Mali Empire flourished like never before. Gold poured from its mines, filling the coffers of the royal treasury and fueling a golden age of prosperity. But Mansa Musa was not content with mere material wealth. No, he hungered for something far more valuable: knowledge. Picture, if you will, a land where gold flowed like water, where caravans stretched as far as the eye could see, laden with precious metals and exotic goods. This was Mali, the jewel of West Africa, and at its helm stood Mansa Musa, a man whose very name struck awe into the hearts of kings and commoners alike. And so, in the year 1324, Mansa Musa set out on a journey that would shake the foundations of the known world. His destination? Mecca, the holiest city in Islam. But this was no ordinary pilgrimage. Oh no, dear viewer. This was a spectacle the likes of which had never been seen before and would never be seen again. Imagine, if you will, a procession of 60,000 men, each adorned in the finest silks and carrying bars of gold. Picture 12,000 slaves, each bearing 4 pounds of gold bars. And at the center of it all, Mansa Musa himself, flanked by 80 camels, each carrying 300 pounds of gold dust. It was a display of wealth and power so staggering that it left all who witnessed it speechless. As the caravan made its way across the Sahara, word of Mansa Musa's approach spread like wildfire. In Cairo, the streets buzzed with excitement and trepidation. What would this African king be like? Would he be a friend or a foe? The tension was palpable as the city held its breath, waiting for the arrival of this legendary figure. And then he was there. Mansa Musa swept into Cairo like a sandstorm, his presence impossible to ignore. The streets were lined with people, all craning their necks to catch a glimpse of the man who seemed more myth than mortal. But it wasn't just his wealth that left an impression. It was his thirst for knowledge, his eagerness to engage with scholars and learn from the great centers of Islamic learning. As Mansa Musa continued his journey, he left a trail of gold and goodwill in his wake. In every city he visited, he distributed gold with such abandon that the price of the precious metal plummeted. I can imagine the whispers of disbelief as he passed through city after city of the Sahara on his way to Mecca. Is this man a king or a god? they must have asked. Mansa Musa sent shockwaves through the economies of North Africa and the Middle East. The markets in Cairo crumbled, economies trembled, and the world took notice of the empire that had been quietly growing in the heart of Africa. As we approached Mecca, the air thick with the scent of incense and the sound of prayers, Mansa Musa's demeanor changed. He became contemplative, almost reverent. It was here, in the holiest city of Islam, that the seeds of a grand vision were planted. He forged connections with scholars and holy men, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. Finally, after months of travel, Mansa Musa reached Mecca. As he stood before the Kaaba, the holiest site in Islam, one can only imagine the emotions that must have coursed through him. Pride at having completed this sacred journey, humility in the face of divine presence, and perhaps, just perhaps, a spark of inspiration for what was to come. For you see, dear viewer, Mansa Musa's pilgrimage was more than just a display of wealth and piety. It was the catalyst for a transformation that would turn Timbuktu from a remote desert outpost into a shining center of learning. As Mansa Musa made his way back to Mali, his mind was alight with new ideas. He had seen the great libraries of Cairo and Damascus, had spoken with scholars from across the Islamic world, and he knew, with the certainty of a man touched by destiny, that he would bring that same level of scholarship and learning to his own empire. And so, upon his return to Timbuktu, Mansa Musa set about turning his vision into reality. He commissioned the construction of the Sankore Madrasa, a university mosque complex that would become the crown jewel of Timbuktu's intellectual life. But it was the library that would truly set Timbuktu apart. Picture, if you will, a room filled with books. Not just any books, mind you, but manuscripts of such rarity and value that scholars would travel for months just to catch a glimpse of them. Texts on astronomy, mathematics, literature, and theology, all carefully preserved and studied by a cadre of dedicated scholars. And so began the transformation of Timbuktu. Once a modest trading post on the edge of the Sahara, it would soon become the intellectual heart of West Africa. Mansa Musa poured his vast resources into the construction of the Sankore Madrasa, a university mosque that would rival any in the world. This, dear viewer, was the birth of Timbuktu's famous library, a repository of knowledge unrivaled in all of Africa, perhaps even in the world. And it was all thanks to Mansa Musa's vision and the wealth he had so generously distributed on his pilgrimage. The library grew at an astonishing pace. Manuscripts on every conceivable subject filled its shelves. There were works on Islamic law and theology, of course, but also treatises on agriculture, poetry, and even the mysteries of the stars. Scribes worked tirelessly, copying and translating texts, ensuring that the wisdom contained within would be preserved for generations to come. As one record puts it, it was the library that truly captured his imagination. Books, he would often say, are the vessels of wisdom, the bridges between cultures. And so, from every corner of the Islamic world, books began to flow into Timbuktu. But the library was more than just a collection of books. It was a living, breathing center of scholarship. Imagine the buzz of activity as students and scholars from across the Islamic world flocked to Timbuktu, drawn by the promise of knowledge and enlightenment. Picture heated debates in the courtyards of the Sankore Madrasa, as great minds grappled with the most pressing questions of their time. The impact of Timbuktu's library on the intellectual development of West Africa cannot be overstated. It was here that a new generation of African scholars was born, men and women who would go on to make significant contributions to fields as diverse as mathematics, astronomy, and Islamic jurisprudence. But the library's influence extended far beyond the borders of the Mali Empire. As word of Timbuktu's intellectual riches spread, scholars from as far away as Cairo and Baghdad began to make the arduous journey across the Sahara. They came seeking knowledge, and they left with their minds expanded and their worldviews forever changed. The years passed, and Timbuktu's reputation only grew further, as scholars from as far away as Andalusia and Persia also made the journey across the Sahara, drawn by the promise of knowledge and intellectual freedom. The city became a melting pot of ideas, where the wisdom of the East met the traditions of West Africa. But with great knowledge comes great responsibility. Mansa Musa was keenly aware of the power held within the library's walls. "Guard these books as you would guard your own children," he instructed the librarians, "for in them lies the future of our people." And guard them they did. Even as empires rose and fell, as invaders came and went, the library of Timbuktu endured. Its manuscripts were hidden in desert caves, buried beneath the sands, passed from hand to hand in times of danger. It was as if the very spirit of Mansa Musa lived on in those ancient pages, protecting them from the ravages of time and conflict. For centuries, Timbuktu's library stood as a testament to the power of knowledge and the enduring legacy of Mansa Musa. Even as empires rose and fell, as the sands of the Sahara shifted and reshaped the landscape, the library remained a constant, a beacon of learning in a world often shrouded in darkness. But time, dear viewer, is a relentless foe. As the centuries passed, Timbuktu's glory began to fade. The great caravans that had once brought wealth and scholars to the city dwindled, and with them, the flow of new books and ideas. The library, once the pride of West Africa, fell into neglect. Yet even in decline, the library's legacy endured. The manuscripts, carefully preserved by generations of dedicated scholars, survived the ravages of time and the depredations of conquerors. They whispered of a time when Timbuktu was the center of the world, when knowledge was the most precious commodity of all. Yet as I watch young students poring over texts that have survived for centuries, I am filled with hope. For in these pages, in this library, lies a testament to the enduring power of knowledge and the indomitable spirit of Africa. And now, in the 21st century, a new chapter in the library's story is being written. Efforts are underway to preserve and digitize the remaining manuscripts, to ensure that the wisdom of centuries past is not lost to the sands of time. It's a monumental task, fraught with challenges, but one that speaks to the enduring importance of Timbuktu's intellectual heritage. As I stand here, surrounded by the ghosts of scholars past, I can't help but marvel at the journey we've taken. From Mansa Musa's epic pilgrimage to the golden age of Timbuktu's scholarship, to the present-day efforts to preserve this priceless legacy. It's a story of ambition, of the pursuit of knowledge, and of the enduring power of the written word. So the next time you hear the name Timbuktu, dear viewer, remember this tale. Remember Mansa Musa, the king whose generosity birthed a center of learning. Remember the scholars who dedicated their lives to the pursuit of knowledge. And remember that even in the most unlikely of places, greatness can take root and flourish. As the sun sets once more over the golden sands of Mali, I close my eyes and listen. In the whisper of turning pages and the scratch of pens on parchment, I hear the echoes of a dream realized. And I know that as long as there are those who seek knowledge, the legacy of Mansa Musa and the library of Timbuktu will never truly fade. Mansa Musa's journey may have begun as a display of wealth and power, but it ended by laying the foundation for something far greater. In building Timbuktu's library, he created a beacon of learning that would illuminate the world for generations to come. For in the end, it is not gold or power that truly endures. It is knowledge, passed down through generations, that forms the bedrock of our shared human heritage. And in that sense, the legacy of Mansa Musa and Timbuktu's great library lives on in each and every one of us. Now, as I stand in the shadow of the great Sankore Madrasa, my beard white with age, I cannot help but marvel at the legacy of Mansa Musa. The gold that once dazzled the world has long since been spent. but the true treasure he left behind continues to shine brightly. If you were captivated by this journey, subscribe to Epic A, Legends and Chronicles, for more untold stories from Africa's past.